Welcome to Essential Style. In this video, we're going to be talking about dress shoes, specifically how to get it fitted properly, that way it's comfortable and your feet aren't going to be killing you all day when you've got to wear something as stylish as a nice leather dress shoe. So let's get right into it. Alright, so first I just want to dispel a myth out there, and the myth is that dress shoes are uncomfortable. A lot of the times the discomfort that guys feel is because they're using the shoe for something that it's not intended for. Like if they were wearing a shoe like this Allen Edmonds Fifth Avenue, if it wasn't broken in, if it was too tight and they were walking 10 miles a day in it and they've been wearing sneakers all their life, yeah, it's going to be killing your feet. And a lot of that has to do with the sizing and just the way that the foot fits inside of the shoe, and it can cause hot spots and numb points just because it's too tight, or if the shoe is too loose, your foot's floating around in there, that can cause blisters as well. So dress shoes are a great option for, especially if you get them in brown. Something like this is a bit more dressy, but something like the McAllister wingtip from Allen Edmonds, this you could take with jeans and maybe an Oxford shirt untucked. If you can find a dress shoe that's a bit more casual and it's comfortable and it's easily dressed down with a pair of jeans and an Oxford shirt, that's going to be a much better option because you're going to look more stylish and you're going to be able to get much more use out of that one pair of shoe, and you could overall have less pairs of shoes. Another thing I'd like to mention too is stay away from square-toed shoes. Square-toed shoes, a lot of times they're going to be a lot more comfortable because they're wider, they allow your toes to expand. Don't do it. It literally looks like someone just cut the top of the shoe off and it just looks weird. It doesn't look like that stylish, sleek silhouette. Doesn't look good at all. With that being said, don't just walk into any store that you find and expect to wear a great fitting, comfortable pair of dress shoes within the first 10 minutes. Take your time to find a style that you like, in a color that you like, something that fits your foot well, something that's not going to be killing your feet, and something that's not going to disintegrate the first time you wear it in rain, for example. So now that that stuff's out of the way, let's talk about how to get a great fitting pair of dress shoes. So tip number one is you got to wear dress socks. Dress socks are going to be thinner than cotton athletic socks. They're also going to come up higher, and they're usually, if you get what's called over the calf dress socks, they're going to be able to come almost all the way up to your knees. That way your socks aren't going to be coming down constantly throughout the day, which if you guys are anything like me, it just drives me absolutely crazy. You can get a solid color like this. You can go with something a bit more fun like this. It's just enough, it's just kind of fun, but it's subtle. I would stay away from those crazy patterns unless you're going to like a holiday party or something like that. You're just going to get a lot more use out of the solid colors, and you don't have to think. It's one less thing you got to worry about, guys. These socks in particular are from Bombas Socks. Bombas Socks, my absolute favorite. That's the only socks that I wear. They're great. They stay up. I highly recommend you guys checking them out. There you go. It says Bombas right over there. But if you guys don't want to go on the internet and buy a pair of socks, a lot of times if you're going into a shoe store to buy dress shoes, you can usually find dress socks in the same store. Of course you'd be able to buy dress socks for your dress shoes in the same store. That's just good salesmanship. So for tip number two, it's going to be understand that your size isn't always your size. So look at the footwear that you're currently wearing. There's probably a bit of a variation between your boots and your casual shoes, your casual sneakers, your sporty sneakers, your running sneakers. For me, for example, in athletic shoes, I size a 13. For my Vans old schools or my slip-on, the canvas vintage sneakers, you could call them, just casual sneakers, I'm a size 12 all the time. Clark's Desert Boots, Red Wing Iron Rangers, I'm a size 11. And the Allen Edmonds 65 last, which we'll talk about last in a little bit, I am a size 11.5 E. I had to go up one width in these just to get the comfort that I liked. My first pair of Allen Edmonds, I measured at a 12B. I guess they measured that I had a narrow foot at the time. These kind of work. They aren't that comfortable all the time, but I really don't wear the black ones very much, and when I am, I'm only wearing them for a couple of hours, so I haven't had the chance and I haven't felt it necessary to go drop a couple of $100 more on a pair of black dress shoes that I'm only going to wear once a year, if that. What you want to do too is look at that Brannock device, which if anyone's ever been in a shoe store ever, that's that weird device, that's the metal thing, it kind of looks weird. You've seen it, I'll throw a picture up of it right here. That kind of can give you a good reference point of what's a good starting point of, do you have a wide foot, a narrow foot? Is one of your foot longer or is it shorter? For example, my feet are a tad on the wide side. I'm between a D and an E, but my right foot measures at 11.5. My left foot measures at a 12. I've gotten shoes before where the right foot actually feels fine, but the left foot, my my big toe is hitting the top. And that is how I know that, okay, these shoes are not going to be good, because once your feet swell, it's not going to fit and not going to be comfortable. And the width and the length all depends on the style of the foot and the volume, how big the volume it is. My Red Wing Iron Rangers, for example, a lot of boots, they're higher volume, so you can get away with sizing down more and still have a lot of room for your toes. But dress shoes tend to be narrower. I tend to, like I said, I had to go up one width just to get that right perfect size in the middle of everything and just to have it be a happy medium. I've worn Echo shoes years ago. I found Echoes I always had to size down like crazy, and then I realized it's because Echoes are really wide. So sizing down meant that the width wasn't too wide for me, but it was almost borderline too short, and my toenail was starting to touch the top, especially on my longer foot. And for tip number 3, understand that at different points of the day, your shoe can vary up to a quarter of a size. So you may measure in the morning at an 11.5 regular D width, they call it D width, but then as the day goes on, you may measure closer to a 12 wide or 11.5 wide because your foot can swell. It also depends on, are you hydrated, are you dehydrated, do you have a lot of salt or sodium that you ate the night before, were you out eating a bunch of foods that are causing a lot of inflammation? All these things can actually dictate and change how your shoes fit. And this particular shoe is a great example of when I put this shoe on in the morning, a lot of times it feels loose. But as the day goes on, it gets to be more and more of a better fit to the point where it actually starts, if I've worn these all day before, and I'm talking like a 10, 12 hour day on my feet, I do start to get a bit of pinching right here, but it's that happy medium where in the morning it's a little bit too loose and then it's a little bit too tight. If I went any bigger, it would have been too loose. If I went any smaller, it would have been too tight. Actually, let me show you. Okay, so first putting these on, they do feel a little bit too loose. Oh yeah, you should typically use a shoe horn. It's going to save the backs of your shoe right there. It's not going to get all crinkled and damaged. Shoe horn's always a good idea. Otherwise, you'll damage your shoes if you want to keep them for a long time. So in the back, I'll try to show you guys. See how much of a gap I have? I can slam my foot all the way to the front of the shoe, and I could easily stick one finger in there, my pinky, forget it. I could even fit my thumb in there. Also you see the way how, if you pay attention to the part where the laces are, you see how it's all closed up on this shoe? It's also all closed up on this shoe. A lot of people would say these shoes are actually too big for me. I do feel a little bit too big now, especially if I stand up and I do get almost like a flip-flop effect, which is a bit annoying, but I know that as the day goes on, that's not going to cause me any problems. It's not going to bother me, but as the day goes on and my feet end up swelling, it's going to fill out the volume I have right here and here, and I'm not going to get that flip-flop effect. You guys want to find a happy medium. If the shoe is a little bit too big, it feels like, your feet may swell. If the shoe is a bit too small, your feet may shrink. And only you can know this. You got to just kind of pay attention to how your feet act throughout the day and what kind of activities you're doing, and if your feet swell, if it's hot, if it's cold, and all that stuff. So I bought shoes that are too big, too wide, too narrow, too short. I said too big, I meant too long. I've made all the mistakes. Now I know that I have shoes. I know how they fit. I know that they're going to be comfortable and not cause me any unnecessary discomfort if I'm wearing them throughout the day. So with that being said, it's best to try on the shoe at different parts of the day. And I would even go so far as saying, if you can find a shoe store, whether it's Allen Edmonds or just DSW or just order a couple of pairs from Zappos, try the shoe on in the morning, try the shoe on in the afternoon, try the shoe on in the evening. Try it on when it's hot, try it on when it's cold, try it on when you drink a lot of water, maybe when you're a little bit dehydrated. Not that I recommend. You should never let yourself get dehydrated, and you should never really eat a super high sodium diet. You should always be taking care of yourself, but it happens. That is going to give you a better representation. You guys are probably going to find that, hey, in the morning the shoe is a bit too loose, but in the afternoon it's actually fits pretty good. It feels a bit too tight. That's the size I would go for. The size that in the morning, when your foot's not swollen, if it's a bit shrank, it's a little bit too loose, like I was showing you with these guys. And in the afternoon or at night after walking 10 miles or 5 miles or whatever, however long a long walk is for you guys, then at that point you should be feeling okay. The shoe's feeling a little bit snug. Snug, not tight. That is how I've done it, and that is how any of the dress shoes that I have, except for these because these are the wrong size, but I barely wear them. Any of the dress shoes that I've bought since I had that knowledge, I've had great luck with, and they've never felt too narrow, they've never felt too big, they've never felt too small. They always feel just right. So for example, if you have a DSW type store right next to your job, maybe you could try them on in your lunch break, or you could try them on your way home if you just pop in if you have the time, or just go on Zappos and order, if you can afford it, order 2 or 3 pairs. Or if you're a size 11 and a half, start with 11, 11 and a half, and 12. And it's pretty easy to do a Google search, and see how do the shoes fit. Do they fit big? Do they fit small, narrow, wide? And then just kind of go off of that. And I would always recommend try them on at night, try them on in the morning, especially if you have them at the house. Go walk around all day, a day that you're out with your family or friends, and then come back, and before you go to bed and you've logged 5 or 10 miles or whatever on your phone that you walked that day, put the shoes on and see how the shoes feel. You guys are probably going to find that, hopefully you don't make this mistake, because it cost me quite a bit of money to make this mistake, but I bought a pair of shoes that fit me great in the morning when my foot wasn't swollen, and like I said, 3 hours into wearing those shoes, even on a day that I wasn't walking a lot, my feet were hurting a lot. And when I started walking a lot, forget it, my feet were killing me. Alright, so tip number 4 is be prepared to make some mistakes when buying certain dress shoes and buying different sizes of them. With all that being said, if you followed all the advice I just mentioned, you may get the wrong size and not realize it until it's too late. You may change jobs. You may have to wear your dress shoes where you're on your feet a lot more. A lot of times people that wear dress shoes, they're driving around a lot. They're not on their feet non-stop all the time. You may go from an office job where you're walking at most 1 mile a day to a job where you're walking all over the place with clients up to 5-6 miles a day. All of a sudden, your shoes are no good. And you never knew that because you were using them to just kind of sit at the desk and, be on your feet here and there. But now that your use case has changed, all of a sudden, you need to find a different pair of shoes with that, maybe one that has more of a robust sole. You got to wear them out in bad weather. You have to find them that are wider, and it's all because your foot never swelled, or you never had to put your shoes through those certain situations when you first bought them. But now that your situation's changed and you're in a different environment, you may need to go bite the bullet and get another pair of shoes. And it's always annoying when we have to do that. All I could really recommend you guys do is just be prepared to make some mistakes, factor it into your budget, and just try to minimize the mistakes. Just keep that in mind. That's the best thing I could say. And also, if you're not sure, be conservative with your budget. These shoes retail for $400. You can a lot of times get them for under $300. If you've never worn dress shoes or you've never shopped for dress shoes, don't go pay full price for a pair of shoes that you've never worn, because there's a pretty high chance that you're not going to be able to get the best comfort out of them, and you're going to be looking to replace them, and you're going to be kind of smacking yourself saying, I wish I didn't do that. I wish I started with a more conservative type of shoe. Alright, and I don't want to get too specific because this may go over some people's head. Some shoes are made off of the same last, and some are made off of different lasts. Now, a last basically means the shape of the shoe. So, these shoes are made off of the same last. They're the exact same size. These are both 11.5E. And Alan Edmonds calls this the 65 last, or the 5 last. The McAllister, Park Avenue, Fifth Avenue, and their super popular Walnut Strand comes in, which, I don't know, not one of my favorite pairs of shoes. I don't know why everyone loves it so much. That can kind of be a nice starting point too. If you know, like an 11.5E in the McAllister is going to be an 11.5E in the Fifth Avenue, it's also going to be very similar in Park Avenue. The only thing with these Park Avenues is, if we do the same thing, Park Avenue is going to be a bit narrower, and it's going to be a little bit different. It is a 12 narrow. So this is going to be a little bit different, but like I said, I really don't wear this that much. Otherwise, I could just blindly order this online for an 11.5E, or if I go on eBay and find a used pair, I could do that too. Just because I know that is how it's going to fit, and it fits my foot well. Now that being said, these two shoes, this one fits a bit more snug than this one. So the Fifth Avenue is on my left foot, the McAllister is on my right foot. There's not much of a difference in the fit. It's just that the McAllister feels a little bit more, I don't know what to call it. It feels a bit more robust. It feels a bit For example, the Fifth Avenue feels more flexible. The McAllister, because there's a little bit more leather, it just does feel like it's a little bit more resistant. Nothing too crazy, but that means that the McAllister is a tiny bit of a tighter fit. So in the morning, it's going to feel a little bit loose, but then as the day goes on, it might feel a tad more tighter than the Fifth Avenue. However, it's not enough for me to really have much of an issue. These shoes really do fit me slightly big anyway, but as long as I don't have that heel slip that I was talking about before, I'm okay with that, because if I went with the 11.5D, the standard width, then they'd be killing me over here. For my next tip number 5, it's going to be, if this is your absolute first time shopping for a pair of dress shoes for yourself, just make it easy on yourself. Start off with DSW or Zappos.com. DSW, at least in a major metropolitan area, you can usually find a bunch of different options or a bunch of different stores. Zappos.com, I buy a lot of my sneakers and some of my boots off Zappos.com, just because they make it super easy with their return policy. You can buy a couple of different pairs, and as long as you are within vicinity to a UPS store, you could just go ahead and drop it off, just like an Amazon return. I really think that those two stores or those two businesses are great options, and you really can find a lot of options, especially on Zappos. You can really find they have a ton of stuff. DSW doesn't have as much of a selection, but you can get a better feel for things, and that's how I discovered brands. I used to wear Rockport way long time ago. Those two businesses I would absolutely take a look at. That's going to wrap it up, guys. Thanks so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, I'll see you next time. Thanks. Have a great week.